Family Video may be closing, but something that might be reopening, thankfully, is the movie theaters, as Regal has seemingly put out a statement saying that they hope to open by March-ish. They also said in their statement that it all depends on New York and California. Obviously, their two biggest markets. They're hoping if everything goes back somewhat normal or more stability by March, that Regal is hoping to open. This is good. This is some semblance of getting back to normalcy. I think Regal has been so late to reopening because they don't need to rush things like an AMC does, or I don't know if Cinemark needs to or not. But Cinemark and AMC have been open this whole time for most of the pandemic because financially they just need to, especially AMC, through no fault of its own. Whereas Regal, I think, has had some wiggle room, so to speak. Maybe March is a good time. I just don't know. The landscape's so ever changing. Michael, do you think Regal will be open by March? Do you see that being a reasonable estimation?
Potentially. So the famous Regal theater that I go to is when I visit my uncle every year at Thanksgiving, and obviously that was not the case this year. But when I talk with him, and he's a avid moviegoer, just as much as you are, Nate. He goes to the movies more than I do, and he's lamented at this closing because that's the big theater in his area, and it's a beautiful theater, but plenty of actual screens. And I have a lot of fond memories there. And so, knowing that Ohio is where he is at, they're just as restrictive as Michigan, but their cases have been a little bit less. So I think when I picture Regal, I try to put a face on it, and I'm trying to think of where Ohio has been and where they could potentially be in 2.5 months or so. I'm actually optimistic. I think that's a realistic goal, and considering that theaters in my area are actually opened, albeit with safety precautions being taken into account, I think this is going to be good news. I don't think this is being blown out of proportion. I think there's reason for optimism. I do not think this is unrealistic and us just looking at the glass half full regardless of our circumstances. I think this is an educated guess, and I think there's some stats behind it. So if the vaccine's rolling out, and that's now 2 months away, I think people will be comforted. One, knowing that they're going to be reopened. I think people will have confidence in going back. So it seems about right to me.
Yeah, and I've always said, since theaters started reopening during the pandemic, that of all stores or locations, I would think a movie theater is one of the safer options out there because you can tell and limit how many people are in your area. I've said it before, I'll say it 1,000 times. I feel safer in a movie theater than I do in a grocery store because I can limit how far I am. I can control how far away I am from someone else. I trust the people cleaning it. Since they have specific times for movies, we know that they set aside time to clean things as opposed to grocery store. Well, I hope they cleaned it within the past 30 minutes to an hour, but I don't know. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
like there's one theater, my favorite theater by us, that like even before COVID hit, that was like the ideal theater to go to because even without COVID, you're so spaced out from every other seat already. Um, so yeah, I think the theaters really, really need this. It's just a matter of will they have anything new to show because I don't even know if they open in March if there'll be anything for them to show. As we'll talk about probably next week because we couldn't fit it in this very, very busy week. But Morbius just got moved to October from March. So we haven't had any delays in a little bit because everyone's just kind of holding steady.
Yeah.
We might be in for a second wave of movie theater delays or release delays for big projects. But there's just so much uncertainty, and I think there will continue to be for the next month or two. There's just a lot of unknown variables, I think, to factor in here.
Hmm. It's getting to a point because of how long this is played out. It's gonna. I mean, I'm confident that things will get back to like a regular movie going, and I'm still confident with the market. It's going to be something I'm teasing for later. It's gonna feel surreal, and whatever that first movie that drops that's readily accessible, whenever that time frame is, man, is that going to strike gold? It's probably, even if it's a bad movie, I wonder if it's actually going to do really well financially.
Well, see, I kind of think the opposite of. I think a movie in November or December will do a lot better than a movie in June or July. I think people need distance to feel more safe. Like there'll be people that I'm sure that'll go to a theater, but if they said Black Widow's coming out in June as opposed to Black Widow coming out in December, I think Black Widow does financially better in December than it would in June. So I haven't really nailed down like my top box office movie of the year for 2021, but my money is on something that's probably going to come out in the tail end of the year as opposed to, say, in April or in May, where it may have more legs to build up its box office, but it may still not be the strongest. Because we thought Tenet was going to do well because it was unopposed at the box office, and it didn't do very well. So I could see both sides to it. Yeah, there's just so many complicated variables for
Sure.
people smarter than me to try and figure out.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's dependent upon, it's a market-driven thing. It depends on how good the movie is and how safe people feel they will be, because a lot can change in a half a year. Where we've seen that, of course. So if restrictions ease up because of just one, consumer confidence, but also overall health measures, especially in the summer, I could see people once that dam breaks, I see it actually happening pretty quickly, because at that point it would be 18 months of potential like lockdowns almost, and I think once you get a handle on where people put their confidence, put their confidence in the health side of things, and they can see the results. Considering I know plenty of friends who've actually had access to the vaccine already, and that's what they believe they need to do. Then they have access to it now, and I think that's only going to be helpful for later. I don't think we have to wait till December, but here's the thing: is we get to find out. That's what I'm so happy about. We will get to find out with movie theaters. We don't have to guess anymore.
I just want to get back to some form of new content happening, but also, even if we're not watching new content, I just want new content to be actively on the way, not just this thing
Yeah,
has been
sure.
announced. Because like I feel like for the past few months on the podcast, like we've had stuff to talk about, thankfully, but we've been like drip fed. Like this week,
Yeah.
there's not a lot to talk about. Like our last news topic, there's not a lot to talk about there, but there's enough. So like I want trailers. I miss trailers, set photos,
Oh my gosh, yes.
just news in general. That's what I miss just as much as the movies. I know general population likes movies, and as you should, but I like just all facets of movies, releases, the good, the bad, the Michael. No offense to Michael, he's a good looking dude. But like everything, I want the movie scoops. I want the leaked set pictures. I want the announcements, the trailers. I miss trailers so much, and if Regal opening in March helps a little bit, make it so. I just want new stuff again.